I'm going to show you how to get data from Kafka into ClickHouse using the integration wizard in the Aiven web console. To start with, I have here a running Kafka service called Tibbs Kafka Demo. I'm going to start generating some sample data for it using the sample data generator. I'll use the logistics data. That will enable the Carapace schema registry for me, which was important, we'll see later. And then it will use this data following this schema. We're going to send the data as Avro. The fields are a time UTC field, which will be a long containing the timestamp in seconds since the Unix epoch, a tracking ID, which is a string, a message, which is a string, a carrier, which is another string, a manifest, which is an array of strings containing the list of what it is the customer has ordered, a next hop location, which looks as if it's probably a string 3 characters long, but we're not going to rely on that, and the state, whether the item is received or delivered. So we'll confirm that and start the data stream. And if we now go back to here, we can see our data has started flowing. Now, I want an integration to ClickHouse, so we go over to the integrations section here. There are no integrations yet, but I can select ClickHouse. And I already have a ClickHouse service running, so I can select that. This wants me to specify various pieces of data. To start with, it wants the table name that the data will go to. So I'm going to call it Logistics Data in Kafka. It wants a consumer group name. We've only got a single consumer, but if we had multiple consumers and we wanted them to cooperate on writing to ClickHouse, we would use the same consumer group name for all of them. It wants me to specify the topic I want to read from in Kafka, so we'll do that. I can specify more than one if I wish. Our data is going to be Avro-confluent format. That means that every Kafka message will have the schema ID at the beginning so that the ClickHouse consumer can look the schema ID up in Carapace, our schema registry, and figure out what shape the message is. And last, we need to specify in confluent terms what those data fields are in the message. Now, it's very similar to what we had in the Avro thing. For our long, however, we have to say it's a uint 64, and for strings we have to say capital string, the case of all of these matters, and here we've got an array of strings. We save our table details, and then we can enable the integration. Now if we go over to the ClickHouse service, which it's conveniently giving us a link here, we can see our ClickHouse service here. If we look at databases and tables, we can see we've got a service Tibbs Kafka Demo table here. That's named service underscore and then the name of our Kafka. And in that, there's our logistics data from Kafka table. Now, this isn't actually an ordinary kind of database in there. This is intended as a read once database. So the data comes into there from the streaming service, and then you're meant to move it somewhere else to actually query it, because once you've read it out of logistics data from Kafka in there, it will evaporate. I could then look at the internals of ClickHouse using our query editor over here, but that's a little bit limited in what it can do. So instead, I'm going to use the quick connect here, and this shows me the string I need to run at the command line to connect to that particular Kafka service. Now, normally I would just copy this with the thing here. However, I've actually got the ClickHouse server installed on my machine, so I don't need to run Docker. So what I'm going to do is bring my terminal over. So I could paste that line as I was given it, but I'm not going to use that. Instead, here's the same line, but with that ClickHouse client abstracted out of the Docker command. So if I run that, that connects me to my ClickHouse client, to my ClickHouse database, and I can show databases. And there we can see service Tibbs Kafka Demo. What I now want to do is create the table that I actually want the data to go into. So this is a fairly standard ClickHouse SQL. I'm going to call the table logistics data, At this point, I can say that the time UTC field is a date time in UTC format, and it will say, oh, that's how to interpret that long. Again, everything else is strings or arrays of strings, just as it were before. I'm going to use the standard replicate merge tree engine to order things, and I'll sort by time UTC. So that's created me that. And now I need to say that the data from the service table needs to get put in there, and for that I use a materialized view. So all I need to say is I want to create a view which is going to the logistics data, the table I just created, and it's taking everything out of my service table. So that's now running. So I can now have a quick look at that and see if I've got any data. Data should have got through already. Let me just copy the correct command. So we're just going to look at the last three. So we can see there we've got some data coming in.